I've been struggling for the last 20 minutes on how to even just start this video. And the reason is because I want this to be really encapsulating for you guys. And I want you to listen because this is actually a really important topic, not affecting just me, but also you guys. And I want you yourself as the student or learner to understand this because this is something that affects the student and the teacher. When we learn, we generally speaking don't just look at an example and understand how it works. I want you to put yourself back in grade 1 or preschool. When we started learning about the very basics of mathematics, we started learning addition, multiplication, subtraction, and division. Now, when we start learning, let's say we start with addition. Generally speaking, hopefully if you had a decent teacher, we would teach why and how that thing is that way, right? So we would, let's say addition, we would give the example, I don't want to say example, but we would give the idea of having 2 apples. Let's say I have 1 apple in one hand and 1 apple in this other hand. I don't have an apple, but you can pretend I do. And if I want to put them both in the same hand, I would now have 2 apples. Now, this is to explain what the addition is. This is to explain how and why it is that way. And then I would follow up with an example. So for example, 20 plus 20 is 40. And you would start to increase the big number of examples that we have, right? So multiplication would maybe makes a bit more sense. So we would multiply things by explaining how and why it is that way. And then we would introduce the multiplication table or other various examples, and then slowly increase the difficulty of examples. And then we follow up with an exercise, right? So the multiplication table is probably one of the best exercises that probably most of you and me grew up with. So we would learn about the math stuff, and then they would send us home with the multiplication table. Now, why do my tutorials suck? And why do many other tutorials suck? Because all we do, and I do this, I'm very guilty of this, is we will code something beforehand, and then we'll use that as a reference, and we'll just show you how to do it. And essentially what we're doing is we're showing you the example and assuming that you already know how and why it is that way. Now, I always thought that my videos were unique because of the explanations that I have. I always prided myself in the fact that I have a little different way of maybe thinking about things or explaining things. And the YouTube comments might not have helped in that ego. And you guys might like some of the stuff and the way I teach things, but the problem is still there in the sense that I am just showing you guys an example of something. Now, I've been experimenting a little bit, as you can see probably in my last 2 videos or so. I want to try to move away from just speaking into the mic as I do something. All I do is I'll hit record and I will start explaining things, or I'll start doing something, I'll code, and then I'll explain why that is. And I always thought that was unique, especially compared to GDScript, for example. GD, or not GDScript, what is their channel called? Game Dev, no. GD Quest, haha. GD Quest are pretty bad at explaining, I would say. Their videos are very complex, and their examples are very complex. If I were to try to teach you math, and I start off with a billion time, or not even a billion, let's say 99999 plus 99999. Now we have to do a bunch of carryovers and a bunch of stuff like that. Now, if I were to use that as an example to teach you something, that's not very good. That's not a very good way of teaching, right? Because you, as the person who is trying to learn addition, you're just completely lost with the example now, because the example is too complex to follow along. Now, for me, I would simplify the example by maybe saying 1,000 plus 1,000 is 2,000. And maybe the example is a bit easier to follow. And now in your head, you think that the example is easy. So now you think you understand what I'm trying to say. but you don't. Because if I were to say 1,000 is plus 1,000 is 2,000, now you think I've tricked you into thinking that you understand mathematics. You understand how to add, but you don't. Because now if you try to go on and try to add 99999 plus 99999, you don't know how to do that. Now, why is that? Now, the issue is that both of our tutorials suck because we are just doing the second step, which is giving you an example. Now, there are some cases where you can learn from an example. You can try to dissect something and try to understand why and how it is that way, but it's not very efficient. It takes time. You're basically reinventing the wheel. And it does work. I've done this. You usually just look at an example and try to understand why it is that way. And it works, but again, it's not very efficient. Now, my goal in having this channel is to hopefully teach so many people, not just game design. I eventually want to branch out into more things, but teaching is one of my passions, I would say. And I want to master it in a sense. And I need to evolve this channel into something that I think is worthwhile. If I were younger, if I were 15, I would not watch my videos. They are not very useful. Maybe I would watch them, but they're not useful. They don't teach anything. You probably follow my tutorials and then go on to try to make your own game, but you can't. I did the same thing. I experienced the same thing with a YouTuber called Heartbeast. I'm sure some of you might know him. And he's a pretty big YouTuber, but he has the same issue. He just gives an example and hopes that you can do the exercise. I am going to try to stray away from that, and I'm going to now format some of my videos differently. Whether or not I'm going to go I'm going to give you the how and why, and then an example, and then exercises. I'm going to try either separating into different videos, or I'll have it all in that video, depending on the YouTube algorithm, because I do still want to grow. I do still care about the numbers. I do still care about the money, whether it's a little or a lot. These things do affect my life. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that money doesn't matter. A lot of people would like to do that and like to say that they don't care. But the truth is, these things do matter. Anyways, now that I've kind of gone on to my rant, I just want to let you guys know that I am going to do my best to try and implement this philosophy of teaching, because I don't think there are any other channels that do this. And this affects you as the learner. If I'm just giving you examples, you're not going to be able to go on and do your own thing after. So I'm going to try to do my best to change my ways, change my videos, and change the format to better accustom to actually teaching you guys. Because I do care about views, but the views aren't all I care about. I want to actually teach people, and I would love to see you guys go on and making your own game. I would love to see that. It's something that excites me, and it gives me hope in the world, if that makes sense. So if you guys have, definitely join my Discord. Check out my channel more. Join my Discord. Show me what you've made. I would love to see what you guys have made. I have a channel specifically for share your projects. So if you guys have a project that you're working on, or it's already done and you've made, either watching my videos or just in general, come share it. I would love to see it. And I will see you guys in the next tutorial. Bye-bye.